the kids weren't scared.
Right.
The mothers were scared.
Right, right. On behalf of the kids.
On behalf of the kids. But the kids knew it was a morality play.
Right.
Ever wonder what really went on behind the scenes of Blazing Saddles? Gene Wilder just revealed something so subtle, so hidden, most fans missed it entirely, even after multiple rewatches. It's not just a line or a joke, it's a performance choice that changed comedy forever. So what did we all overlook? Stick around, because once you see it, you'll never unsee it. For decades, Blazing Saddles was celebrated for its outrageous satire and jaw-dropping punchlines. But tucked beneath its irreverent humor was something far more profound, something fans often overlooked. A detail so quiet, it whispered rather than shouted. And now, years later, Gene Wilder's subtle confirmation reveals that the true heartbeat of the film wasn't in the explosive gags. It was in the stillness of a single, almost invisible performance. A revelation like this doesn't just change how we see the film, it changes how we understand its soul. It's the kind of behind-the-scenes truth that redefines a classic. The story begins in chaos. Mel Brooks had cast Gig Young as the Waco Kid, banking on his experience and screen presence. On paper, Young was the perfect fit, but from the very first day, the illusion shattered. Young collapsed on set, visibly struggling, unable to keep up due to serious health issues. The entire production hovered on the edge of collapse. That's when Mel Brooks reached for a lifeline. Without hesitation, he called Gene Wilder, a man who didn't need convincing, didn't demand terms. He simply said yes. No script, no details, just commitment. Within hours, he was on a plane, and within a day he was standing on set, ready to change the trajectory of the film. Wilder's entrance wasn't just timely, it was transformative. He didn't try to outshine anyone or match the chaotic energy around him. Instead, he made an unexpected and daring choice. He grounded his performance. The Waco Kid, in Wilder's hands, wasn't a caricature. He was wounded, exhausted, worn thin by life. Wilder stripped away all the expected slapstick and gave us something more honest, comedy rooted in human truth. It was a performance not screaming for attention, but commanding it quietly, like a storm you only hear when the laughter fades. In a film so overflowing with absurdity, Wilder introduced a character that felt hauntingly real. One of the most memorable moments, the trembling hands, hit viewers in the gut. Not because of a punchline, but because it came from a place of genuine sorrow. That moment, like so many of his lines, felt lived in. Behind every quip and deadpan stare was a story the character never told aloud. Wilder didn't play for the crowd. He played for something deeper, anchoring the film with emotional gravity that balanced the chaos. His performance wasn't just a role, it was the spine of the entire story. And because Wilder stayed grounded, the outrageous characters around him had the freedom to soar. His stillness gave the film rhythm. His restraint created space. Every wild gesture, every over-the-top line delivered by others became more effective because of his calm, steady presence. He wasn't competing with the rest of the cast. He was elevating them. It's a subtle but masterful dynamic shift that few noticed consciously but felt instinctively. Wilder knew the power of silence in a room full of noise. What most fans never realized, though, is that Wilder's impact reached far beyond his own performance. He didn't just show up, deliver his lines, and leave. He shaped the energy on set. He offered quiet guidance, often without speaking a word. Colleagues noted how his presence brought calm to the frenzy. He became a steadying force, both on camera and behind it. That kind of influence is rare, especially in a film this chaotic. But it's exactly what made Wilder's role unforgettable. Not because it was loud, but because it lasted. It's easy to look at Blazing Saddles and see only the outrageous brilliance. But when you revisit it with fresh eyes, knowing what we now do, you see the threads that held it all together. Gene Wilder wasn't the flashiest part of the film. He wasn't the one delivering the biggest laughs, but he was the one who made those laughs land with impact. He was the calm center, the grounding truth, the unexpected soul of a film that dared to offend, challenge, and redefine comedy. And now, all these years later, with Wilder's quiet confirmation of what he set out to do, audiences are starting to see the film in a new light. This isn't just a story about a clever casting choice. It's about timing, instinct, and the courage to go against the grain. Wilder's Waco Kid wasn't just another role, it was a risk. A beautifully understated risk that turned a collapsing production into a cultural landmark. His genius wasn't loud, it was in the pauses, the glances, the way he let the audience fill in the blanks. In a world that often rewards the loudest voices, Gene Wilder reminded us that sometimes the most unforgettable power lies in quiet conviction. His performance didn't just steal scenes, it saved a film. And if you listen closely, between the laughs and the absurdities, you'll hear the heartbeat he left behind. It's still there, tucked inside every frame, waiting to be noticed. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Behind the curtain of chaos on the Blazing Saddles set, Gene Wilder became the quiet compass everyone unknowingly followed. As Mel Brooks charged forward with his relentless creative energy, loud, unpredictable, and brilliant, Wilder offered the opposite: stillness, wisdom, and a kind of emotional clarity that helped anchor the whirlwind. While others fed off the frenzy, Wilder made space for reflection, subtly shaping the tone of each scene and quietly guiding the younger cast. His influence wasn't loud, it was lasting. He gave structure to the storm, and within that structure something remarkable began to take shape. In between takes, amid all the satire and madness, Wilder began to dream. It started with a simple question during one of those long breaks. What if the descendant of Dr. Frankenstein wanted nothing to do with the family's dark history? Just a fleeting idea, tossed out like a joke. But Wilder didn't let it go. That single line of thought became the foundation for Young Frankenstein, another groundbreaking comedy that would leave its own mark on cinema. He wasn't just acting anymore, he was building. Behind every role, he was quietly writing his next chapter. That's what made him different. While the cameras captured one moment, his mind was always a few steps ahead, piecing together what would come next. And what followed was pure cinematic brilliance. Wilder's role in shaping the essence of Blazing Saddles didn't stop at performance. When Warner Brothers executives started second-guessing the film's biting satire, pushing for softer language and more sanitized humor, it was Wilder who stood firm beside Brooks. He wasn't listed as a producer or executive, but his voice carried weight. He believed satire was meant to challenge, not coddle. He understood the film's edge wasn't just shock value, it was its heartbeat. Without that, the film would lose its purpose. And Wilder, always soft-spoken, made sure his message landed with power. He protected the soul of the story, even when it would have been easier to compromise. In the quiet corners of Hollywood conversations, there's a version of Blazing Saddles that only exists in the imagination. A version where Richard Pryor didn't just help write the script, but played Sheriff Bart himself. Brooks wanted him. Wilder supported the idea. But studio nerves over Pryor's public controversies blocked it from happening, and Cleavon Little stepped into the role. He was phenomenal, sharp, poised, and commanding. But Wilder later admitted that he often thought about what that alternate version would have felt like. Given the electric chemistry he and Pryor shared in later films like Silver Streak and Stir Crazy, it's hard not to wonder, would Wilder's quiet sorrow have glowed even brighter next to Pryor's blazing energy? That unanswered question lingers in film lore, adding a haunting dimension to what already feels like a lightning-in-a-bottle project. Still, Wilder made the Waco Kid unforgettable. He took a background character and gave him a fractured soul. You could sense it beneath the humor, a deep fatigue, a man drowning his memories in wit and sarcasm. Wilder didn't rely on grand gestures. Instead, he used stillness, silence, and subtle glances to suggest a life full of invisible scars. Some speculated his portrayal hinted at something deeper, something like trauma, masked by the bottle, by bravado, by banter. The pain was always there. It just wore a smile. And oddly enough, it was those quiet, vulnerable moments that often derailed filming. Not because they were overly dramatic, but because they were so real that the crew couldn't stop laughing. It was the unexpectedness of Wilder's timing, the way he delivered even the saddest lines with such sly charm that broke everyone on set. There was one moment in particular that stuck with people, the trembling hand, the subtle tremor that spoke volumes. No dialogue could have matched the impact of that simple gesture. It wasn't scripted for laughs, but it was honest, and that honesty made it iconic. Wilder's ability to balance humor and pain was rare. It's what made the Waco Kid resonate long after the credits rolled. And it's why, decades later, people are still discovering the brilliance tucked between the jokes. Even off-camera, Wilder was a stabilizing force. Cast members often talked about how he seemed to know exactly when someone needed encouragement or a quick joke to ease the tension. He wasn't trying to be the star, he was making sure the whole cast could shine. That kind of generosity doesn't get written into scripts, but it defines legacies. Wilder was the rare kind of artist who improved every room he entered, not by dominating it, but by making space for others. And in doing so, he left behind more than memorable lines and iconic characters. He left behind a blueprint for how to lead without demanding attention. His quiet mentorship, his creative instincts, his insistence on preserving the truth within comedy, all of it shaped the DNA of the film. He didn't need the loudest voice. He just needed the right moment, and he always knew when to take it. What makes a performance unforgettable isn't always what's said, it's often what's left unsaid. And with Gene Wilder's Waco Kid, there were layers of pain, irony, and brilliance that never made it to the final cut. Entire scenes that dive deeper into the kid's backstory were trimmed to maintain pace. But those who saw the raw footage described something profound. A man carrying invisible wounds, his past tucked behind sarcasm and silence. If those scenes had remained, audiences might have seen a deeper exploration of disillusionment, a quiet meditation on fading glory and addiction masked by wit. Wilder didn't just act, he offered a mirror to the soul of a character trapped between legend and reality. In a movie famed for its outlandish humor, he dared to give us something real. And that choice, delivering a performance stripped of gimmicks, became a quiet revolution in comedy. In an era when comedies screamed for attention, Wilder leaned into restraint. His timing was so delicate it felt accidental, but it was deliberate, masterful. He didn't chase laughs, he made space for them. He trusted the material, and more importantly, he trusted the audience. That kind of subtlety doesn't just age well, it becomes timeless. There was no wink to the camera, no over-the-top delivery, just a man lying in a jail bunk, speaking half-slurred truths that landed like thunder. He gave comedy a conscience, and it hit harder because of it. Wilder's ability to challenge the norm without raising his voice is what set him apart. At a time when Hollywood comedy rewarded chaos and exaggeration, he whispered his way into the audience's hearts. And the most astonishing part? He never even planned to be there. He was called in last minute, stepping in because a friend needed him. But sometimes, the unlikeliest entries leave the most lasting impressions. Without Wilder, Blazing Saddles might have still been funny, but it wouldn't have had a soul. His presence gave it a pulse, a human core beneath the absurdity. And just when it seemed like Wilder had given all he could to that one film, he quietly started sowing the seeds for his next masterpiece. While the world laughed at cowboys and chaos, he was dreaming up Young Frankenstein, a film that would reshape genre comedy yet again. Wilder didn't just change the trajectory of one film, he shifted the entire landscape of comedic storytelling. He pushed back when studios wanted to tame the message. He leaned in when things got messy. And he led not by demanding attention, but by showing everyone how powerful stillness could be. Even now, when we revisit the film, the character who stays with us isn't the loudest or the flashiest. It's the one sitting in the shadows, eyes tired, voice calm, hands trembling just enough to let us know he's been through something. That's where the magic lives. Wilder turned the Waco Kid into something far greater than a comedic sidekick. He made him a symbol of emotional depth hidden in plain sight. His ability to convey so much with so little rewrote what people believed comedy could do. Beyond the screen, Gene Wilder's life carried its own quiet kind of richness. Though he was never one to flaunt wealth, his success allowed for a life of taste and comfort. Over the years, he owned a collection of elegant European sedans, vintage Jaguars and Mercedes-Benz among them, vehicles that matched his understated style. His timepieces often leaned toward classic Swiss designs, with a fondness for Patek Philippe and vintage Omega. He lived in thoughtfully chosen properties, including a charming Connecticut home tucked away from Hollywood's spotlight, and a historic Beverly Hills residence he shared with Gilda Radner. He never flew the tabloid-friendly private jet circuit, but he did enjoy chartered flights for work and travel. Business-wise, Wilder was quiet but smart. investing in publishing projects and holding modest stakes in production ventures. His estate planning included robust insurance policies that covered his work-related commitments and long-term health protections, which proved essential later in life. If there's one financial lesson to take from his journey, it's that lasting success isn't about excess, it's about sustainability. Wilder focused on meaningful investments, creative freedom, and long-term well-being, rather than fleeting headlines. Looking back now, Wilder's legacy is one that bridges two worlds, the outrageous and the thoughtful, the bold and the silent. He broke barriers in comedy not with noise, but with nuance. He taught an entire generation of performers that restraint can speak louder than spectacle, that laughter can stem from truth just as powerfully as from absurdity. And in doing so, he gave us more than just iconic lines. He gave us characters that felt like people we knew, or maybe people we feared we'd become. So, when you sit down to rewatch Blazing Saddles, don't just chase the gags. Watch the stillness. Watch the moments between the lines. That's where Wilder left his signature. In the quiet, in the depth, in the performance that didn't need to shout to be heard, because sometimes the most unforgettable voice in the room is the one that speaks with a whisper and leaves behind an echo that never fades. Thanks for sticking with us through this unforgettable journey into the hidden brilliance of Gene Wilder's performance in Blazing Saddles. We peeled back the layers of a film that, on the surface, is pure comedy gold, but underneath hides something richer, deeper, and quietly revolutionary. From stepping into the chaos of a production gone sideways to grounding one of Hollywood's wildest films with restraint and heart, Wilder didn't just act, he anchored. He turned what could have been a simple sidekick into a character filled with nuance, depth, and haunting charm. His decision to play the Waco Kid with a weary stillness, to whisper when the world around him shouted, made his presence unforgettable. And when everyone else went for the big laugh, he aimed for truth. And that's what made us all feel something more than amusement. We also explored the untold stories that happened off-screen, how Wilder mentored fellow actors, stood his ground in creative battles, and quietly planted the seeds for young Frankenstein right in the eye of a comedic storm. And let's not forget the roads not taken, the scenes that never aired, the casting decisions that changed Hollywood history, and the roles Gene almost never played. It's those tiny what-ifs that make us wonder just how much more brilliance was waiting to be discovered. If this deep dive made you see Blazing Saddles in a whole new way, or if it brought back memories of the first time you watched that classic unfold, go ahead and give this video a like. Drop your favorite Gene Wilder moment in the comments. Was it the trembling hands, that barely there smirk, or the calm voice in the madness? We want to hear what stuck with you. And hey, if you love uncovering hidden Hollywood gems, secrets behind iconic scenes, and forgotten genius performances, we've got a lot more coming your way. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're first in line when the next mystery drops. Because in a world full of loud performances and flashy roles, sometimes the most powerful impact comes from the quietest voice in the room. And that's exactly what Gene Wilder gave us. A reminder that comedy can be sharp, soft, and soul-stirring all at once. He didn't need to shout to be heard. He just needed to show up, and suddenly everything changed.